New car and truck prices are proof that wealth distribution is a mess. Obviously, I've been talking to a lot of people here recently. I've had emails, I've had comments, people reaching out to me on both this channel, Easy Car Buying, as well as Exotic Car Play Place. If you're not familiar with that, at the end, I'll include the link to the other channel. You're definitely going to want to understand that, because here we're talking about the cost of, the vehicle markets, the cost of vehicles, of course, whether it's trucks or SUVs or cars, and where in fact is the best time to buy in. Recently I've had some numerous comments, people reaching out, hey, I'm looking for a brand new Chevy pickup truck because currently I drive one and it's been good for the last 5 or 6 years, but it's time to buy a new one because it seems like the transmission is starting to let go. Spitting codes, the engine's not driving right, it's not catching gears, and it's actually locking into certain gears. So I need to buy myself a new vehicle. So this person was out shopping around and come to the conclusion that, back in the day, a mere 5 or 10 years ago, that person would have no problems working a solid upper middle class type job and was able to no problem take their vehicle down to the dealership, trade it in, and have a small car payment left, and basically within 4 or 5 years have that truck paid off, no sweat, with a few $100 a month car payment. Unfortunately, this person here now, after doing some digging and finding out that new truck prices are where they're at, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, is now cost prohibitive. Then they looked at this and they said, well, in about 5, 6 years, that vehicle that's $80,000 is only going to be worth 40 grand. So I lose 40 grand. That's about, $8,000, $10,000 a year on depreciation. Then this person decided, you know what, maybe I'll just keep what I've got and basically just fix it. Even with a $7,000 transmission replacement, it's still a far cry ahead of buying a brand new truck. So that's one example. Another example was somebody I know recently as well. They're driving a smaller car, basically a little Honda, and they've decided, you know what, I've been driving this for about 6 years now. It's time to step up. I've got a couple of jobs, working 2 jobs, feeling that I'm in a right place, that I should be able to buy something new and fresh. And of course, after they started to look around, doing some car shopping, going down to an entry-level luxury car. For example, 3 Series BMW, Audi A4s, Mercedes C-Class, thinking, okay, it's time to step up. I want to treat myself. I actually, working 2 jobs, potentially working a 3rd. And now, I think I can afford it. Then they go in there and they realize, well, wait a minute. The dealers are often offering 8.99% on this new vehicle. So then you start reverse engineering this and realizing that's going to cost a lot more money in the end. And you're going to wind up putting another 25% of that vehicle's price right on the top again, just for the sake of interest charges. Then on top of it, you take what is normally a 3 Series BMW, that brand new is about $60,000, $70,000 Canadian. Then you talk about 5 years depreciation, which we know those cars typically see. Then you're down to a place in 5 years, you've got that car now that's only worth about $30,000 or $25,000. On top of that, you've added another 25% on interest charges, which is basically, like I said, you take 70, you divide that by 4, now you're in and around that, say, let's call it $15,000 on top of it. So now you've actually paid, closer to $80,000 and your vehicle's only worth $25,000. You've lost $50,000 to $60,000 between depreciation and interest charges. And then this person went back and thought, my head hurts and it's time to just forget it. You know what? Maybe I'll keep driving the old Honda because it doesn't owe me anything. And we also know that some of these luxury car brands have some expensive maintenance once they run out of warranty. So owning this vehicle outside of 5 years means that now I'm into the world of repairs and out-of-pocket expenses on top of the mass amount of money that I just lost in 5 short years to the tune of 50 grand or thereabouts. Means that this is, we don't have to be economics or economists, so to speak, to actually understand that that's not necessarily a great purchasing experience. And, back in the day when you had $300 or $400 a month payments, it seemed like it was okay. You could tolerate it. If it was like a high-end vehicle, it felt okay. Hey, I'm treating myself. Now, that vehicle that puts you into that space where you feel, yeah, this is it. I've made it. Now you're going to spend at least $1,000 a month. Now, again, that span, right? I've talked to so many people that have elected to basically keep driving what they're driving, whether it's an old truck, whether it's an old economy car, whether it's an old minivan, they repurpose it, put a new set of skins on it, try to do some cleanup on it, and then they just decide that I'm just going to keep it. So clearly that spread of wealth is widening. Who's making the money in all this? Well, the dealerships, clearly, with all their add-ons and their markups and interest charges when you take their in-house financing and all those extras that they tack on there, they're making the money. The OEMs are making the money because they're setting the prices to what they know they can afford. Other than if you're getting into the electric market, which, let's face it, we know that's starting to becoming a bit of a losing proposition. We know Rivian's struggling slightly, as well as Lucid. They're talking about they're losing a massive amount of money on every unit. For example, over $500 to produce a $100 share within that vehicle. So they're almost a 5-to-1 loss ratio on every vehicle that they produce. So they're obviously their time is coming to a close. So brands like that are rare, startups, emerging brands are struggling. But the old OEM brands, the Fords, the GMs, the Chevys, and we're not really in a capitalist market. You would think that, okay, they're going to extend themselves. They're going to go on a risk, take a chance, build a vehicle. Even if it's a loss, let's get a vehicle to market. No, they don't worry about it because now we have government bailouts supporting the likes of GM, Stellantis. We know, we've seen this in the past, and if history repeats itself, they're never losing. How do you like that? If you were to walk into a casino, you sit down, you start with $100 in black, you can double down, keep betting, raising your bets. Yeah, you could take all kinds of chances, right? You keep loading up your bets because there's a big opportunity to make a pile of money. But if all of a sudden you lose all your bets and you're like one and the dealer's hot and they're flipping, they're getting 21. Next thing you know, you're losing against the dealer and all of a sudden you have nothing left. But the sad reality is the equivalent to that is you've got this little angel on your shoulder here handing you an extra $100 bill, an extra $100 bill. You just ran out, but they keep topping you up. So you never really run out. So you don't lose on the bottom end, but you reap all the benefits at the top end. Not truly a capitalist environment. I get it. People have to work. So that's the spin-off of bad mistakes that some of these corporations make. But the bottom line is I've met so many people that are struggling to justify buying a new vehicle. And I mean, even everyday vehicles. Forget about these luxury vehicles or the pickup trucks. I've had people talk about, okay, look, you know what? I'm used to driving a bigger vehicle. I'm going to downsize. I'm going to trade on this 7-year-old pickup truck. It's heavy on fuel. I can't afford a new truck. So maybe I'm going to start looking at smaller vehicles. I've met numerous people like this where they've said, it costs me more to start this truck up and let it idle because it's a diesel than it would be to drive to work and back with my little crap box car. So some of these people now are traditionally driving these big heavy duty trucks are now electing to either sell them or just park them and drive a much smaller car. But now what we're seeing is even the smaller, more affordable cars, for example, like the Honda Civics, again, even the Mazda 3 aren't necessarily cheap. They're supposed to be cheap. And if you look at their bottom line, the MSRP, when you Google it, it seems like an affordable thing. But then I actually walked into the dealership of some of these these OEMs and these manufacturers, and you can't even find a vehicle even close to what they're actually saying starting from. Not even close. They start adding this or they layer it up with features and of course options. And next thing you know, these packages bring it up to where a vehicle that should have been at $45,000 is now at $60,000, $65,000. I've seen that in the Mazda CX-50. I've seen that in the Mazda 3. I've seen it in the Honda Civic world. And even the Toyotas are starting to get there too. Although they don't seem to be quite as aggressive, all these OEMs are starting to just package it up. We know this has been going on for the last year and a half, but unfortunately, it still continues on. And I get it. We are transitioning now. The tables have turned, and karma is, as I've said in the previous video, sucks for those OEMs. Yeah, but remember, they're a business, and this is not their first rodeo. And I gotta think that they've always got an ace up their sleeve. Yeah, they've always got some new trick, something new that we haven't even heard of. As we're sitting here listening to this video and recording this video, there's dealerships, there's OEMs, there's GMs, general managers There's some of these head CEOs of these organizations are conjuring up new ways to strategize more money out of your wallet. And so that puts me in a personal spot. I too could use a new vehicle. And I've said in previous videos that I actually have elected to just keep the old Ram. It's a 2003 Dodge Ram running. But that too is, I'm finding, very heavy on fuel. If I'm spending $150 a week on gas, we're talking about, $500-600 a month for just fuel charges. So what if I saved myself some troubles on the gas and I ended up buying a cheap car that would only need maybe $50 a week, or say $200 a month? There's a differential of $400, so maybe buying a small, cheap, economical vehicle will actually justify the difference in prices. And so obviously it's got me thinking, but then I started looking at, you look at the Kia Rios and the Hyundais and the Kias, and they're not well-made vehicles. So you think, okay, I'll get myself a cheap price point car, but that's exactly what you're getting. So the only way you can step up and get a decent quality economy vehicle is to look at the Hondas and the Toyotas and the Mazdas. But like I said, now the Toyotas and the Corollas, remember, actually the Honda Civic, remember back in the day when you can get a brand new Honda Civic for $12,000, $15,000, and that's Canadian dollars. I mean, US was even less. Now to get into a brand new base Honda Civic, you're well into the 30s. You're pretty much touching $40,000. And forget it if you're looking for the Type R. If you want the hot rod version, those are in such hot demand. People are paying huge money for some of those. I've even heard some of them exchanging hands for six figures. So here we are in a place where the rich get richer and the poor folks like me are getting poorer. And sadly, and the poor folks like me and some of you out there are finding it more and more difficult to justify that new purchase. Sure, can we go out there and buy one? Maybe. Maybe we can dig in deep. Maybe we get ourselves locked into a 5 or an 8-year lending term. Maybe we get ourselves a 9% interest rate charge on that. Maybe we buy a vehicle that has a moderate level of depreciation. But walk out at the end of that 5 years, and when you actually run the numbers, we start realizing that you're losing a lot of money. Now, I get that. Every vehicle is a poor investment, and that's pretty standard. There's nothing shocking about that. It's nothing new. But it's never been more obvious than it is today, where the people over here, the big OEMs, and a lot of those corporations like the GMs and the Volkswagens of the world are creating all this newfound wealth. They've expanded, they've grown, they've made so much maximum profits that they've never seen before. And then there's us over here, a lot of us barely affording to eat in a lot of days, in a lot of cases, and we don't even think about buying a new car. That's just so far out there for a lot of people right now that it's just not even a point. So where does all this end? Even with these minuscule little incentives that a lot of these OEMs are talking about, and I shared this in the last video if you saw that, these OEM incentives, they've jacked prices up 40, 50, 60% in the last 3 years in some of these brands. So even with them notching off $2,000, $3,000, even $5,000 off the bottom line on a brand new vehicle, which by the way, they rarely advertise, but even if they do, that's all you're going to get after they first cranked it up by 30%, 40%. Now they're going to take off 5%. We're still losing in a big, big way. So the struggles are real. We're waiting for the next turn. With these dealers, hopefully we're starting to see that a real turn, not just the flip and the turning of the tides, but I'm talking a serious escalation where a lot of these dealers are getting ultra hungry and ultra motivated to give you and I a deal. Because right now, again, as I've said, the spread between the wealth and the non-wealth is broadening as we speak every single day. And I'm just finding it much more difficult to pull the proverbial trigger and buy myself a new car. I don't know what you all think about that. I'd love to hear your comments in the section below. This is a little bit of a spin-off video, my own personal feeling about this. This isn't about facts. This is about me. And this is my personal experience and some of the people I've interacted with and some of the heartache and heartburn that people are experiencing with the car market. So I'd love to hear your comments section down there as well. Be sure to check out right there. There's a link to my other car There's a link to the other car channel, Exotic Car Play Place. Definitely want to go in there, check it out, and give it a subscribe if you like the idea of not buying a piece of junk and buying a good car. I mean, that channel's all focused on the technical ownership experience, reliability, and all of those factors. So hope to see each and every one of you in the next one. We'll see you all real soon, and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.